Rules and regulations. I think this is something which you see everywhere. Be it anything, you go to a place, you have its rules and regulations to follow. You do something in life, even otherwise, and I feel unless and until you don't have rules, you wouldn't know your domain, you wouldn't know your parameters. So likewise, whenever, be it any subject, I'm going to bring it to a general level here, be it any subject, not just the English language, when you talk about doing something to the fullest, you talk about following the rules that govern it, right? So knowing the rules is very, very important. So please keep your pens working. There may be a few things talked about which are not evidently given here in front of you, so I would really appreciate that you take them down for your future reference. Okay, now paper 1 section 1, directed writing, and you can see this icon in the right hand corner which says tip. So this is more like what you should know while you're attempting section 1. Only one situation is set. Now students, something which is very important to understand here is you have this Hobson's choice. लिटरेचर में एक टर्म यूज होता है जिसका मतलब होता है कि आपकी अम्मा आपको सुबह कहती हैं कि आज ना हमने लंच पे जाना है, आपकी खाला की तरफ, तो तैयार हो जाना, आना होगा तो आ जाना, नहीं आना होगा तो फिर देख लेना. नो दैट इज लाइक नॉट गिविंग एनी ऑप्शन, दैट्स लाइक टेलिंग यू कि जाना है तुमने, अगर तुम नहीं कहते हो तो फिर देख लेना. सो बेसिकली दैट्स द काइंड ऑफ सिचुएशन यू हैव हियर. You've got to attempt only what is given here, and there is no option, and for that you need to, so this brings out the importance of you knowing all 4 types of functional writings. तो जैसे हम guest papers use करके और वो कि जी the teacher gave us her hunch feel that we'll have a speech this time and not a letter, so let's just forget about the letter. So I would, as an examiner myself and a teacher of the English language, insist upon you knowing all 4 forms. बेटा, it's not just कि आप एक के expense पे दूसरे को ignore कर दो. So all 4 have to be equally practiced. Read the question carefully. I'm just going to amplify this tip here by telling you or asking you to analyze the question. So when I say read the question, I'm expecting, as an examiner, I'm expecting the student or the examinee to analyze the question. ठीक है, उसकी थोड़ी सी टिट्स बिट्स करके ना, उसके पार्ट्स जैसे अलहदा करके हर पार्ट को evaluate करना. For you must have already gone through the questions in class as well. जो task set होती है, it has a couple of components to it. It has different parts. There are instructions, there are directions, there are 3 bullet points. Then there is also what you should begin like. Begin with dear sir, begin with dear madam. So students, all these instructions and requirements have to be duly followed by you. And for that you need to read the question rather thoroughly. Do not ignore any details and do not tamper with anything that's given in the question. Again, something very important. Unlike in section 2, where you can let your imagination go wild to some extent, here you have to stay within the given directions. You may not. I'll just give you a simple example. Students, they normally, like at least at my end, my students would ask, Miss, if we have a male principal or male school head mentioned, can we just change it to a female school head? And my answer would be like, no, not at all. So if it's he written, it stays he. If it's she, it stays she. If it's school, it stays school. If it's your school, you can't just talk about another school. The event has to be in your school, without you saying that in reality you would never be able to host such a thing at school. So I'm harping upon it here to insist on how important it is to stick to the question. You may not change, you may not tamper with any details in the question. Elaborate all the content points. Now we all know that we have 3 separate bullet points or content points given in the question, and each of them has to be fully amplified or elaborated while they stay interconnected. ठीक है जी, so these were a few rules to remember. Now we have this question. These questions that are very, very important. So we'll start with who and why. Now, bachcho, when you talk about who, you talking about who am I writing it for? ठीक है? If you're writing a letter, who the audience is, who am I writing it for? Is it for the general public? Is it for my principal, for my teacher, for a friend, for a company, for a manager, for the town hall, council, police, whosoever? The who has to be, and how I would appreciate you people making a note of it is, when you've read the question thoroughly, write somewhere on the question paper who to use the audience. Be very specific about it. At times we are not very specific and then we lose track of the required details. So I would request you to actually put it in black and white. लिखो कि मेरा audience ये है. It's my English teacher. It's a teacher who will be leaving in a month. Don't just write teacher, principal. You have to be very, very specific. Then why? Why am I writing? Again, when we talk about the importance of knowing why you're writing, we're talking about the importance of knowing what language to use. Beta, even otherwise, since when we talk about a language, we talk about a method of communication, and a very important part of your communication skills, or what makes you a good communicator, is choosing the right diction at the right time. I'll just give you a very simple example. Now, I'm an employee. I'm working with an organization. So if I were to say something in front of my class of students, I'll perhaps have a different diction chosen than when I would be taking the same thing to my employer's table, right? So I will be rather calculated there. बच्चों को तो, स्टूडेंट्स को तो मैं कुछ भी कह सकती हूँ ना कि अच्छा, you should know you have to do this. But when I take the same thought to my employer, I might refine it on the way, something like, I would appreciate you reconsidering the matter in the interest of the students or my colleagues. So what have I done here? I have mended or tuned my choice of words according to bachcho, my audience, and why am I obviously writing, or what am I saying. So both who and why are very important in that case. So to explain, inform, instruct, convince, persuade, sell, give an account of something that you witnessed, to complain. ठीक है? So these are the few, and this is not all. There are other reasons of writing as well, but these are the major ones that we would be writing for. How is it written? Again, it's the same thing. The genres that we have for directed writing, namely report, letter, account, article, statement. So the number of times I've harped upon them means that they have comfortably sunk in, and by now you people have them on your fingertips. So if anyone asks you what the paper pattern is, the assumption here is that you can just readily tell them what the paper is all about and what we are expecting to know in the paper. Okay, now tone. I've just given you, and thankfully, incidentally, I just gave you an example which would exemplify this point as well. Language. Our audience and the purpose decides the tone. Giving you a random example here, obviously, because we don't have a question for now here. So a general example would be, if you have you writing a letter to your principal to inform her about what the student body, to just share the student body's proposal or the council's proposal about the improvements in the library, your school library. Now, when you have who, the principal as the who, and you informing her through a letter, then the tone of your writing has to be likewise, perhaps polite, informative, convincing at points, because when you're presenting a proposal, it is with the thought of it getting through, it getting sanctioned. So you will have to be persuasive, you will have to use adjectives which actually are convincing enough to the principal or the management. So the tone would be the kind of again diction that you're using to convey some sense. So tone and register, with that what you need to connect is the register. So register is your choice of words for a particular tone. If the tone is formal, you'll use or you'll select a formal register. Informal tone, persuasive, suggestive, informative, argumentative. So whatever is the purpose of your writing and whosoever is the audience, these two things predominantly or mainly decide the tone and the register. And beta, this is something which forms a major chunk of your assessment with the Cambridge examiner, right? So you have to be very careful about this. And again, this was a tip from my side, and I hope that the way it's summed up here, you use this summary and put it to effect in your practice of this particular section. Okay, again, what you have here is a kind of an overview of the structure of a directed writing piece. So you will have an introduction, be it a letter, account, a magazine article. You will have an introduction, and you will have the main body, the content, which is obviously divisible into paragraphs, and then a conclusion. 5 paragraphs. Okay, so you need to note that 5 paragraphs can be formed. Now there are two schools of thought, bacho, on this. One school of thought says that you must have 5 paragraphs, okay? And there's a more reasonable school of thought, which I would consider myself a part of, the self-claim here, is the one that says that yes, you need an introduction, you need a paragraph where you state the purpose, where you familiarize yourself with your audience, and then a conclusion is there last of all. Within the 2 paragraphs, you may have 2 or 3 depending on the nature of the bullet points. Now, if you have a question wherein you have a content point such as when and where the incident happened. Now, I don't see any linguist or any person who actually has an understanding of the language wanting to see a separate paragraph, a single liner on just when and where the incident happened. The event took place on Friday, 19th August 2020. This is not a paragraph. And how can you amplify this without having it connected with another content point? Any of the other 2. So, and then the school of thought that says there have to be 5 paragraphs also propagate the idea that each point elaborated has 5 marks given. Even that is a sort of a misconception. For as an examiner myself, I know that your 15 marks of TF, task fulfillment, which is how you elaborate the points, the 3 content points, is not so objective as that. So it would be like perhaps 2 marks given for this particular point, and then you have the other 13 divided between the other 2 points. So it's better that way. So you need to ensure that you have at least 2 forming the main body, but not necessarily 3, and the kind of paragraph, the single liner paragraph that I just talked about is not a paragraph at all. Use the structure shown. The structure can be seen here in the left corner. Leave a line after each paragraph. Now, this is something which your teachers must have made you practice amply in your class, in your notebook, that you people need to separate paragraphs with a line space. There is a line left in between 2 paragraphs. ठीक है बच्चों? Okay, paragraphs should all start from the left. Again, the block format being followed, so it's more about the format. You don't indent the paragraphs. You don't leave a finger space. ठीक है? And again, this is to do with the what is basically the modern day method of writing, and you have it even when you're forming a soft copy of any writing. ठीक है? So beta, this was about the structure. Quick sum up: introduction, body, which is divisible into paragraphs, where you elaborate the content points, but not necessarily in 3 paragraphs, 2 or 3 paragraphs, depending on the 3 points that you have. And then conclusion. Now, intro and conclusion are dependent on which genre you're writing. If you're writing a letter, the intro and the conclusion would be different from when you're writing a magazine article, and also depending on your question. All right. Moving on, an examiner's advice, and you can see this icon that I referred to earlier in the course. Students should collect and read the samples of each type of functional writing. Very important. Inspiration, I think we all feel inspired from one thing or another, or one person or another all our life, and that is what shapes us as individuals by the end of the day. So you start off being inspired by your grandparents, or then your parents, your elder siblings, and then you move on into the outside world, and you have so many people who touch your life, who inspire you, motivate you, who you emulate, जिनको आप you look up to them. ठीक है? तो इसी तरह से जब हम लिखते हैं ना बेटा, तो we draw inspiration. और reading is something which cannot be again detached from writing. So I would say अब आजकल तो इतना जितना आप लोगों का information technology का एक hype है, और everything has gone cyber as it were. तो आप लोग तो बहुत easily you can have an exchange, or for instance if you have a question dealt with in class, exchange it, उसकी soft copy या जिस तरह से भी online भी अगर आप है तो exchange करो with your friends. मैंने ये लिखा है, आपने क्या लिखा है. So the more, it's not just writing, it's actually reading as well. The more you will read about a particular thing, the more you will know about it, and a part of it you will retain to apply in your own work. So it's going to bring more maturity to your work. ठीक है? Gather helpful phrases, opening and closing phrases, starting off new paragraphs, etc. Again, there's a glut of all of this online, and the people I have at the other end, obviously I know, are more tech savvy and would know of more websites than anyone would. So beta, you have so many links, so many websites. We just have to click, okay, how to begin a letter. So do a bit of that. It's not that we are going to be showing, and I feel that I don't need to tell you what it is. I need to show you the way to it, and then you find it out yourself. And that's the mark of a teacher, that she doesn't keep telling कि अच्छा देखो ये घड़ी है. You just point out the thing and you say कि बेटा अच्छा, what do you like about it? What does it look like? Okay, what can this be? Do you have something similar at your own place? So a teacher wouldn't say this is a clock and then that's it. That's what actually dismisses the element of creativity, and we don't want that to happen. ठीक है? Practice such type of writing. Again, writing is something we cannot disregard. You have to be writing in order to know how to write eventually in the paper. create their own situational writing questions. Now, okay, now this is something which I would have my own 11 graders doing in the class. So I would just give them a situation and divide them into groups. So what you can be doing is think of a situation, you experienced one lately, and just have a question in your mind. Okay, I'll be writing a letter to my aunt who lives abroad about this something that has happened, and what 3 points can I be writing about. तो बेटा इससे क्या होगा कि जब आप differently practice करोगे, so you will know the right method to the right thing. ठीक है? Remember tone and register. I've already discussed it now, just lately, and tone and register are crucial to what you're writing and the grade that you can expect.